Hello, I'm Laura, and I'm a member of our Information Technology Department at Mercer County Library System. And today I'm going to be talking to you about our language learning databases. We have three that are available to us at this current time. Those would be Mango Languages, Pronunciator, and the Rosetta Stone Language Learner. To get to our databases page from our main website, which is www.mcl.org, look for the resources a listing at the top, and then databases. You can also access our database list by going into the virtual branch and looking for the link for all databases. When you arrive at the page, you'll see what we're seeing on the screen now, which is our available online databases. There is a subject drop-down which you can use, and you'll find in here you'll see language learning as one of the options. Also note that we do have blog posts that are available that describe the databases, and you can see a link to those here. So there is one on the language learning databases. What you can do is just scroll down to find the database you're interested in, and you will find the alphabetical listing. So we're going to look at Mango Languages first. That's listed here, of course, under M. And when you click on the link, you're going to go to the main landing page. Actually, before you get to this page, you're going to be asked to enter in your library card number. That will be the 14-digit number that's on the back of your card underneath the barcode. You want to enter in all 14 digits and don't include any spaces. That will get you into the table of contents page for Mango. You'll notice that you can also log in with an account you set up, or you can continue as a guest. Today I'm continuing as a guest just so I can show you what the database looks like. One benefit, of course, of signing up for a free account, you just have to really put in an email address and a password, is if you're working through a unit or a language and you're going to work through multiple units, you'll want to keep your progress recorded. So every time you come back to the Mango language database, you'd be able to log in using your username and password, which will allow you to access any kind of tutorials you've already completed. There's going to be things like lists of skills to build upon. You'll see quizzes will pop up as you're working through this, and you might take a quiz, which will then give you an idea of what areas you need to do further work. So what we're going to do is pretty much just jump into one of these lessons so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Now, the main page, once you've logged in or opted to continue as a guest, is going to show you popular languages. We used to have only a few languages in here. Now we have all of the Mango languages, so if you're interested, you can do a search, or you can click the See All, and you'll get a list. It's a pretty extensive list, so you could definitely go into here and find a variety of languages, over 70, that you can select from. I'm going to stick with Spanish Latin American anyway, just so we can get an idea of what a lesson looks like when it's set up. So once you've selected your language, you have at the top three options. You have the learning area, you have an exploration area, and you have tools. We're going to come back to the learning area. I just want to see what the other ones look like so you have an idea what you're looking for. There is, okay, under the explore area, this looks like an area that's coming soon, and tools is the translator. So basically this is using Google Translate. So what our main thing is going to be here, obviously, is going to be learn. The understanding is the explore area is supposed to have cultural information and everything. This basic lesson in Latin American Spanish may not have anything, but you'll see that other areas will have cultural information as well. So once you're in the learning area, you'll see at the top we are starting with the main unit, which is an introduction. At the top right side, after you see Unit 1 Introductions, it will tell you how many chapters there are and how many lessons that you're going to work your way through. There's also a goals area. So if you click on that, you'll get a pop-up which will tell you exactly what you should be learning in this particular lesson. So this being a basic lesson in introductions to Spanish, you're going to be learning how to say hello, good day, how are you, those kinds of small talk. You'll also learn some basic grammar in here. You'll see Each unit is laid out in terms of how many sections you're going to work through. There's also going to be a listening and reading comprehension area, and then you'll get to the end, you'll get a recap. Now, as you're going through this, it's very helpful to have a headset with a microphone, or at least a microphone attached to your computer. The reason you want to do this is because there will be opportunities for you to pronounce the words that you're learning and the phrases that you're learning, and you'll be scored on that by the audio recognition within the software. So on the left, you'll also see where you're working your way through, and these little boxes become checked off or grayed out as you work through the chapters. You'll also see that oftentimes there's specialty units. So if you have some familiarity with the language, you can of course work through the main units and work your way up to building your skills or refreshing your skills. But if you're coming back to a language and you just want to brush up on a specialty area because maybe you have a business trip or you're working in a particular area and you're working with it as a Spanish speaker, because we're talking about Spanish here, or perhaps you're working with a speaker of another language, and you can come in here and pick up just those specialty units that happen to deal with that area of business or medical terms, legal terms. That kind of stuff is separated, so you can just kind of have a quick refresher. The other thing about this that I should have mentioned earlier when we were looking at the language list is if you know somebody who's trying to learn English as a second language, there are areas that teach English, and some of them are separated as to whether they're coming to us from Spanish, French, or another language. So you can see that there are chapters that are written specifically for speakers of a certain native tongue that are trying to learn English. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at one of the lessons. Again, we're talking about salutations and small talk, so I'm just going to go ahead and click on the one, and it's going to open up the lesson for me. You'll have a quick tutorial which will tell you how to use the microphone, to do the pronunciation, and you'll see some other kind of guides to how to use the software. We're not going to go into those. We're just going to start with the first lesson. So we're going to see you do have your conversational goals, similar to that pop-up that we saw earlier, which was covering the whole unit. This is telling you what you're going to be learning in this particular lesson, in this particular chapter. Same with the grammar goals. So I'm going to click Start, and you should hear Okay, so what I basically did was the first page of this, and at the top you'll see we have page numbers, 3 of 24. The first was the introduction. The second was the one I skipped through because they basically were going to go through the entire lesson, and for time's sake, I just wanted to skip through so that we could get to one of these pages and I could explain what's going on. After you've gotten through the introductions and gotten a list of what you're going to learn, it starts with the lesson. So of course it's going to give you the word in English and then in the language you're trying to learn. You can do a voice comparison if you'd like to pronounce it yourself and try it, or you can repeat the whole lesson. So I'm going to skip through a few, and as we're looking at them, we'll see it's a lot of the same repeating where we're going to learn a phrase or a word. So basically what you're going to be doing in some of the other lessons as we're going through is you'll get grammar notes, you'll also get cultural notes, you'll also get some areas that talk about construction of the language. So what we're going to see here is you'll get little information, again, starting with basic, how do you pronounce different letters in the alphabet of the language you're learning. So I'm going to skip through. Hola. So basically, we've gone through, and what's happened is I've been quizzed. Can I say hello, which is hola? I've done that. and I've moved on to good morning. So I'm just going to flip through a few so we don't listen to all of these. So you see I've skipped through to page 16, and what I'm being given here is, again, one of those cultural notes I mentioned, similar to the grammar notes, where you're going to have some explanation given as to why something like buenos noches, in this case, can be used as either a greeting or a farewell. So if I happen to get through all of that, which I just ran through quickly, you get to the end and you say, see, you get your congratulations. You've finished the first lesson. I can opt to restart, or I can go next to move on. So now we're here. I'll see I've got 52 options here, and you're getting into more conversational. So that's basically how these work. You're just going to work your way through the different lessons. On the left, if I click the X, it's going to take me back to my main page for this particular language. And now you can see I've made some progress here. And you'll see you've gotten your daily review. So if you keep coming back each day, it's going to tell you how far you've gotten along. You can do a daily review to refresh the lessons you had learned the previous day, which in this case was introductions. So if I wanted to do one of these per day for the next 5 days, every day I came back, I would get a refresher on the previous units that I had completed. So if I had gone through the introduction for the rest of today, and come back tomorrow and I do connections, I'm going to get a mini review on the introductions area. Then I can move on to connections. At any point in time, you can click the resume learning and it will get you back to where you were. Of course, the area here, I now have gotten the green okay that I finished that one, and I can move on to lesson 2 if I'd like to. The other thing is, in that area where I had said this dot would eventually fill in, you can see I have a little slither because I finished 1 of 7 areas, or I'm sorry, chapters, plus the listening and reading exercises. I'm going to jump ahead to the reading exercise just so you get an idea of what these are. And again, you're going to get a quick tutorial. So here's where you're going to see the rundown of what you're going to learn again in here. So you're getting 29 unique vocabulary words that you're going to learn in here. I'm just going to go ahead and hit start. And so you're going to have a set of areas here on the left that you're going to read, and then you're going to get your quiz on the right. So what you could do is you could read through and then apply it. Now, of course, as you can see, we looked at a basic lesson, and most of the words you're seeing in here are not ones that we had learned in the basics. So obviously, when you get to the speaking, listening, and reading sections, what you're looking at is something that's built upon the lessons in that particular unit. So I skipped ahead so you could see what this area looks like, but you really don't want to do that if you're in the beginnings of a lesson. Obviously, you want to work your way through the lesson, and then you can go through this quizzes at the end to test what you learned in those lessons. Okay, I'm going to exit because I don't want to complete that particular activity. So just looking at these again, you'll see the main units are here and the layout is on the right. So you can see the different things you're going to be able to work on and that are going to build upon each lesson. So starting with the basics, you're going to go through business, and then you're going to get into eating and culture, and then you're going to get into more detailed things like pets, relationships, weather, travel, that kind of stuff. So as you're working through, you'll pick up more vocabulary, you'll pick up more grammar lessons, and towards the end you'll do those quizzes, you'll be graded on them, and then you'll be able to see where you stand. Okay, so that's Mango Languages. The next one we were going to look at is Pronunciator. And again, you can find that by scrolling down alphabetically and finding Pronunciator here. Pronunciator is really good if you are coming back to a language or you need to learn something really quickly. It's not quite as complete in terms of following a complete lesson through. And one of the best things about these three databases we have is they each have a different approach to teaching you the language. We've found, we wanted to have three mainly because different people learn in different ways. So you could use all three and get a comprehensive, really in-depth learning experience for the languages. The other thing you could do is if one of these appeals to your learning style more than the other, of course, stick with that database. Of course, we say explore all three, but just so you know, they all are very similar in the way they're structured. It's just a little bit of a difference in the way you go about learning. So Pronunciator is also pretty good in the sense that we had seen in Mango, if you speak Spanish or French, there's a lesson there for learning English as a second language. In Pronunciator, when you click the I speak, you get quite a list of native languages. So the database would be tailored towards your native language, and you would be learning whatever language you have opted to learn on the I want to learn drop down. So basically, you could be a German speaker and learning Italian, and this particular database is going to allow you to do that. So that's where there's some flexibility in here, that if English is not your main native language or your primary language, it's a secondary language, and you'd like to learn some other language, you can definitely select your starting language, and you have quite a collection to select from. Okay, I'm going to stick with Spanish on this one. So out of the I want to learn area, you'll see I can scroll up and down. You can see quite the collection again of languages. I'm going to pick the Spanish Latin American again. In Pronunciator, you can do three options here. There are main courses like what we saw in Mango Languages, but there's also a personalized course area and a learning guides and more. The learning guides and more, you can see structured 8-week courses, city tours, interactive and grammar and more. So we do have some tools in here. We've got the grammar reference. So again, if you're coming in here with some knowledge, working knowledge of the language, and you want to refresh your knowledge of that, the reference tools that are here are great. And again, beginning courses, you can have those as well. And I had said earlier, this is a good one if you just need to come in and get like a quick, easy or learning guide. So if you're doing travel to a Spanish-speaking country and you want to learn enough to be able to travel, they do have the 8-week travel prep. So you can just kind of come in here and get the necessities for your travel. They also tend to put a lot of specialized grammar tools and other units in here from time to time. So right now we're in the middle of the COVID shutdown. So we have the COVID-19 essential phrases. This was added for anybody who's working in different fields that deal with certain languages and need to know phrases that would be specific to the COVID-19 outbreak. So if you're working in an industry that's essential and you're noticing you're getting a lot of French speakers or Polish or German or Spanish speakers, and you need to learn the essential phrases you would need to communicate with people in regards to COVID, you would be able to come in here and get that particular lesson. So you can see in the learning guides, you're going to get specific timely topics. You're going to get your quick hit if you need to travel, business phrases, that kind of stuff. But you also have your extensive 8-week courses. So if you wanted to take your beginning course, your high beginner, low intermediate, and high intermediate, and the advanced courses, they're in here. Also notice there are courses dedicated towards younger learners. So if you wanted to start a guide for early learners, you've got a 3 to 6-year-old. I'm going to go ahead and pause that. So basically, it tells you when you go into a lesson, and this would be the same if you were doing, I picked the 3 to 6-year-old, but the older children or the adult-oriented, teen-oriented class would be the same. It's going to give you an overview, and then you're going to see up here we've got the notes on the lesson, and it's going to tell you what the pacing is. So this is a 4-week lesson plan, and you're going to learn something different if you come back each of 5 days during those weeks. So then you're going to have, at the end of your drills, you're going to have quizzes. So very similar to what we saw with Mango. You're going to be given a series of phrases to learn, cultural notes, grammar notes. So you're going to learn the grammar as well as the vocabulary. Then when you get through the lessons, you're going to do quizzes. Let me see if I can skip ahead. So in this one, we're doing a listening drill, and we started with a color. So what you're going to see is you're getting, because this is kids oriented, we've got a picture, we've got the Spanish word, the pronunciation, and what the word is in English. And if I want to go on, I can do the drop down and pick a specific one, or I can just click next and move on to azul or blue. So once you work through this lesson, this one's 8 parts. It's going to be your first day, and you're going to learn your colors. Once I'm done with the notes, it's going to tell me. So this was basic, so there weren't any quizzes associated with it. So basically, again, much like Mango, you're going to work your way through this, and it tells you the pacing, so you know you've completed day 1. Again, like Mango, when you come in for day 2, you're going to see you have an option to continue on where you had left off. And I should have mentioned that when we click on Pronunciator, it is going to again ask you for your library card before you log in. The other thing you're going to get is the option, of course, to just do a quick entry, and you would be able to just use your library card to start a lesson. But if you're going to be learning this over the course of several days and you're not here just to use one of the tools, you would want to, again, set up an account, which is your email address and a password, and continue logging in after the first day that way. And then you would be able to keep track of how you were progressing. The rest of this is fairly straightforward. At the top, you do have a drop down. So if you want to skip through weeks and days, you can do that and move on through the units that way. I can also go back, and then we again see the main area for Spanish Latin American. This is a little different from Mango. Once you've selected something in the Mango database, you kind of have to leave and then go back, or log out and go back in to get to the main menu. Here you can kind of just use the back button and it will take you back to where you were. The main course is basically an area where you can pick and choose what you're working on. The learning guides are, again, those more structured courses. The main course is an area where you can brush up, or if you happen to be looking for something like workplace, language, or poetry, you can go through and work on the different courses, which are set up the same way as we had seen in the guide. We basically would work through a set of lessons, drills, postcards, quizzes. You'd get a phrase book. So this is pretty much an area where it's going to be topical. I had clicked on the Pro Tunes, which is going to give you a full lesson on music. Now, one thing you can see is the presentation is Spanish on the left and English on the right, because of course I'm in the Spanish module. So you're going to have a comparison so you can see the translations. Obviously, from the text that you're seeing, you do have to have more than a basic working knowledge to work through. So this is probably, the high beginner intermediate that you're looking at. So you would really want to make sure you work through the beginnings courses if you happen to be jumping into this as somebody who's new to the language. Okay, the personalized courses, basically you can create your own learning path here. So you can either choose the topics that are of interest to you, or again, this is another resource that's pretty good for somebody who has a working knowledge of the language, who may be coming back to brush up. Maybe you're very good at vocabulary, but you've forgotten some of the grammar, or vice versa. You can go in and specifically say, I need a grammar tutorial, or I need a vocabulary. Another option you have is if you're working and you're, again, have a basic knowledge of the language, but you want to know the grammar, or I should say the vocabulary associated with a particular occupation, you can come in here and click on the specific occupation and work through a lesson to learn the vocabulary for that particular occupation. So that is basically our Pronunciator database. I'm going to go back just so you know, when you do come back in to Pronunciator after you've logged on, you'll see it gives you a last time you were here rundown, and it's going to tell you what you were working on. Now, if you really wanted to try to learn different languages or started maybe a beginner course in the same language and also wanted to do one of those tutorials on music or whatever, you could have a couple of them going on at the same time. And then you would see you could just resume the course and it will pick up where you left off. So in that case where we were looking at the early learner guide and it had that 5-day program per week for 4 weeks, every day I came back, I could go in here and click resume this course, and it's going to take me right to where I was. So here's where I was. Of course, it's the same day, so it's not going to tell me that it's day 2. It's not prompting me for that, but basically it's telling me where I had left off. Okay, so that's Pronunciator. The last one we have is Rosetta Stone, which I think a lot of people are kind of aware of. This is provided to us from the State Library. Again, Rosetta Stone is going to start you off with requiring you to log in. So you're going to not be asked your library card right away, excuse me, but you will be asked to enter in a username and password. So you're going to have to set that up. This particular one does not offer an option to go into the database as a guest. So basically, when you get to this main page, it's just going to give you a bunch of support info. We do have my reports where I can go and see what I've been working on, and you can see on the left there's a link to those as well. And I haven't assigned a language yet because I haven't selected one. The My Reports page basically looks like what we were seeing in Pronunciator, where it's just going to give you a list of what you've worked on, and I'll give you the option to return and resume that particular lesson. What you want to do is launch the Rosetta Stone Foundations. And this is where you will pick your language. Again, you are going to be seeing a set of languages, and again, we had set up when I had gone in earlier to test this up, I also selected Spanish as my language. So you didn't see the language selection, but it was quite similar to the first 2 we saw from Pronunciator and Mango. And basically you're getting just a list of 50 or so languages that you can select from. And what we'll see in here is you're going to then select your course. So I picked Spanish Level 1. And notice this one has Spanish from Spain. We were looking at Latin America earlier. This one actually, surprisingly to me, did not have Latin American Spanish. It had Mexican Spanish and Spanish, but not Latin American Spanish. There are, of course, subtle differences, regionalities that you'll encounter with different languages. So you'll see there will usually be a different classification. So, for example, French will be oftentimes available as French and Canadian French. So in this case, we can do the course as we choose, and we'll start. So we can start with the language basics, which is what we've got now. So these are our options. We can do an extended course with a reading introduction, or we can do reading and writing, or you can do a focus on it. So you're basically going to pick how you're going to learn this. So I'm going to do extended with reading introduction. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to give me a big introduction for each lesson that I'm going to be able to read through so I can get a feel for what we're going to be doing. Now, it's going to give you again a menu. It's going to lay this out. I've got 4 lessons in language basics. We're going to be learning basic sentences. The core lesson it's telling me is going to take me 30 minutes to complete. Then you've got your pronunciation, your vocabulary, your grammar. There's going to be a reading exercise and a writing exercise in this one. So again, we're seeing how the different language databases go about teaching you the language in a different manner. So depending on what your learning style is, your personal learning style may be more geared towards this intense grammar, reading, and writing, and you might not feel like you're getting as much out of learning the basic vocabularies and the slow lessons from one of the other languages, one of the other databases, I'm sorry. So you may be coming in here to get a very comprehensive overview and intense immersion experience. The other ones, you may be coming back from previously learning a language, or you may be somebody who prefers to start slowly and work your way up to the reading and writing portion. So again, mix and match the databases and work on things based on your learning style. The other thing is, it does want you really to start with the core lesson, but you can go in to another lesson and jump right in and start it. So I'm going to just click on the vocabulary so you can see how the vocabulary lesson works, which hopefully it will load. Seems to be a little slow here. Maybe I won't do the vocabulary. Okay, so Rosetta Stone seems to be slow today for some reason. All right, I'm going to try to see if the core lesson will load. Okay, so one thing you're going to do when you first start is obviously you are working with something that's going to do voice recognition, so you want to gear it towards being able to figure you out. So you want to pick the appropriate voice type for you and select your microphone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we're all set. So you can see you'll have those kinds of things pop up as you're working through the lessons. Hola. So what you're seeing here is it's asking you to speak clearly and repeat the phrase. So I did that already. And it gave me again, hola, hola. 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 Okay, so you can see you can work through, and because I'm speaking over the lesson, it's of course telling me I'm failing because I'm not saying hola too many times. So you can see as you're working through the lesson, it will move on if you're actually doing something other than trying to teach the class. So basically, I'm going to dismiss this so I don't have to keep getting the I'm failing option here. So I'm going to just click at the top, the Learn, and that's going to take me back to my base. So Rosetta Stone is slightly difficult to teach in this kind of environment because obviously it's going to ask me for input, but you can see the lessons are pretty much laid out the same way as the previous two databases we had looked at. So you're going to work through those as you're going along. Let me just see if the reading one will load just for the heck of it, so you can just see an idea of what something other than the pronunciation and the grammar look like. Okay, so here you are. Okay, so you're going to get a similar situation where we're going to say una niña, and it's going to allow you to read through. It's going to build up and basically give you phrases until you get to a point where you are reading the material out loud to the database for the voice recognition. Okay, so that's basically our language learning databases, and hopefully you will be able to use those and pick up a new language or brush up on your skills. Bye.